In the book of Leviticus, not only does God give the people ways of keeping themselves clean and to clean themselves after they've made themselves unclean, they've done something. He gives them instructions how to become clean again, so they can be around God, around other people, and be in that right relationship again. He also gives them instructions on how to do that for some of their possessions, things like cloth and bowls and jars and stuff like that. And he makes some interesting distinctions based on the type of material that stuff was made of. Again, we talked about this earlier. A lot of these distinctions are really based in very practical things. This isn't just, well, God prefers this over that. A lot of it is, it was safer, it was better for the people. Take wood and clay, for instance. If someone had a wooden bowl and something unclean fell into it, got into it, it needs to be cleaned out because now that bowl is unclean. And if anything else touches the bowl, if anything else uses the bowl, they also become unclean. And whatever goes in it becomes unclean. So it needs to be cleaned out so that it doesn't keep contaminating other stuff. And in the case of a wooden bowl, God says, wash it with water, clean it out, it's good to go. That it can be cleaned. But in the case of clay items, jars, bowls, whatnot, he doesn't tell them to clean it out. He tells them to break it and get rid of it, that it should go away. And I think there's a couple reasons for this. And I'm sure God has much greater things that even I don't understand. But two big things that I can see why he would make this distinction between clay and wood. One is that the clay that the Israelites made was probably pretty porous. That the technique for doing that created these clay items that were made pretty easily and pretty quickly, but it left some holes in them. Not that stuff ran through them, but just it was porous and it could soak up some of what went into them, which meant that it was really, really difficult to truly clean them out well. That there were little nooks and crannies that stuff could get into. And if you're talking about things that are unclean, this could, I mean, literally, like I said, practical stuff. This could just be, there's bacteria or there's mold or there's something in this bowl that when you put other stuff, it's going to contaminate it. It's going to get in there and it could make people sick. It could make them unwell and not be good for a whole lot of people, not just God doesn't like this clay pot. It was safer for the people. It was more practical. It was healthier and better for them to just get rid of it. I don't know about you. Anytime we have like those little plastic, cheap plastic leftovers containers around, and sometimes you cook something in one of those, you warm something up in the microwave, especially, I live in Mexico. So red chili is in something. I've had some plastic containers that I seriously, I think the red chili just gets like sucked into the plastic. It's just melted in there because when I'm trying to clean those things off afterward, it is not coming all the way off. There's just little faint lines. There's little bits of it that seem to just be embedded into that plastic. They're not coming out. It's kind of how these clay pots would be sometimes. There was some stuff they had no way of cleaning them out. It's not like they had a dishwasher with a sanitation cycle on it. They could just pop it in there and it was good to go. No, they're out in the wilderness washing these things by hand at this point. And there was no way to get those things clean. So God says, just get rid of them. But on top of that, the clay pots also weren't as valuable. They didn't have the same value that the wooden articles did. They were easier to reproduce, easier to replace. And so God says, why are you holding on to this thing when you could just get rid of it and get a new one? And God has similar instructions for us. The reason he tells them to get rid of those clay pots, just break them, get rid of them, is because they were unclean and they were going to make the people unclean. They were going to cause them to be contaminated as well. In 2 Timothy, Paul's talking to Timothy, obviously, and he says, in a large house, there are articles not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay. Some are for noble purposes and some for ignoble. If a man cleanses himself from the latter, he will be an instrument for noble purposes, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good work. What God is telling them when it comes to this wood and this clay stuff, the difference he's making, he's saying, get rid of the things that are going to cause a problem between you and me. Get rid of the things that are going to cause you to become unclean and for me not to be able to use you. And here's the problem. We're so stubborn that we keep trying to hold on to those things and just clean them. You know what it's like? Have you ever seen someone wash a paper plate or wash plastic silverware? Sorry if that's you. It's a funny practice, though. And it's something that some people have gotten in the habit of doing. They're worried. Oh, we have to keep this. We can reuse this. It's okay. And I think there were probably people in Israel that thought, oh, I just got a little something in this clay pot. I can just wash it off and we can reuse this. And it looked just as funny as it does now when we're washing plastic silverware and when we're trying to wash off paper plates. Why are we trying to wash off and reuse these things when they're no longer good anymore? And furthermore, here's the real problem. The real problem with trying to wash those things off and reuse them is that God wants to give us something else. Is that they're getting in the way of what God wants to do in our lives. When we keep things in our lives that God doesn't want to be there, that God has said it's unclean. This is not something I want to be a part of your life. You need to let go of it. You need to get rid of it. You need to let go of that habit. You need to step away from that toxic relationship. And honestly, sometimes it's not even the thing itself that is so unclean. It's the way we're wrapped up around it. When the rich young ruler comes to Jesus, Jesus gives him some instructions he doesn't give to all of us. He doesn't tell everybody to sell everything you have and then you can follow me. Now, if you're like feeling justified, like, ooh, I don't have to sell everything, then you might need to question your own heart because God might be talking to you. Because that was the problem with the rich young ruler. Jesus could see his heart. He could see what it was wrapped around, what he was going to have trouble letting go of. He could see what was going to come between him and Jesus. He could see what was going to cause that break in their relationship, what was going to divide them, what was going to drive that wedge between them. Sometimes we have these things that are driving a wedge between us and Jesus, and we're trying to wash them off, and we're trying to clean them up, and Jesus is saying, just let it go. I want to give you something so much better than that. I want to give you something so much greater. You just need to let go of that one. Jesus is over there trying to give us this beautiful set of fine china, and we're over there trying to wash off the plastic silverware. Folks, sometimes God just wants us to let go of those things that are causing distance between us. They're driving a wedge between us and Jesus, that they're making us unclean, and they're making it so that he can't use us and can't be involved in our life the way he wants to be. Sometimes we just need to let it go. We need to decide if it's clay or is it wood. Is this something I can clean up, or is this something that's causing me and God to not be in right relationship? Is this something that's causing me to be unclean and I just need to let go of it? Folks, don't try and wash the plastic silverware. Just let it go so that God can give you something so much better and you can draw closer to him. Love you guys. See you soon.